All right, everybody, let's go ahead and just kick it off. I think we're here. We're at capacity. We're not capacity. We're at a good attendance list. We're at quorum, I think is the word. So hello, welcome to the Ready to Learn FAQ for the podcast accelerator that we're going to do. I would love it if people kind of told us where they're from. So if you haven't set your chat over to everyone and you wanted to just type in where you're joining us from, where you're watching this from, love to kind of just see all the representation from across the country. We are, so this is the Podcast Accelerator program. We are presenting this with, this is a program presented in partnership with PRX, PBS, and CPB. And it looks like we have we have Georgia, whoa, it's all coming in. Washington, Rhode Island, Kentucky, KET, wow, okay, cool. St. Louis, I am actually in Missouri right now. In Kansas City, I'm getting 8 inches of snow. I don't know who else is getting their snow serving today, but I know it's different all across the country. So I am Mike Russo. I am the project manager of Ready to Learn. I was the project manager for the first cohort, and I'll be the project manager for the Station Collaborative Cohort 2. I'm joined by Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Kuo. I'm the Director of Training at PRX. I've been involved and managed podcast accelerators like Ready to Learn for the past several years, including Project Catapult for public radio stations. Some of you may have are aware of that, as well as the Google Podcast Creator Program for international audio makers. And we had such a great time in year one working with independent producers. And so we're so excited to be able to extend this program to our partners in public media as well.
Totally. So we are also joined by Devin Tutak, who you may know from CPB. Hey, Devin. Devin is around for any CPB questions and learning neighborhood questions, all things like that. And we also have Tony Carlson, who is the manager of training from PRX, who's doing a bunch of behind the scene things and all of that kind of stuff. So we are recording this webinar, if that's okay, and we will eventually include it on the FAQ sheet for you to go back and look at it. And if you have any questions today, because it's a smaller group, you could put it in the chat or raise your hand and we can try to integrate them in between all of our lecture, I guess. But if you just want to hold off for the Q&A at the end too, then we can do that as well and kind of get to everything. We'll definitely make time to clear up any questions there are about the application process today. Tony, can we go to the next slide? Awesome. Okay, so this is the website to write down, to know, and kind of the place for everything that you will need to know about this accelerator program. It has the FAQ on it. It has the RFP available on it. It has a link to the application, which is probably the most important part, and then other info about Ready to Learn. So you being stations that are involved Ready to Learn probably know a lot about Ready to Learn, but if you need quick links for all of that, it is all there. You will need this link because it will be the link that will get you the application portion. So next slide, Tony. The application due date, just to put it up front and center, is March 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's the website you'll go to apply, to submit all of it through Submittable. And yeah, so just keep it up front and around.
All right, so many of you may know PRX and have loved our work, and you may be partners with us already, but just to give you some quick background about who we are a nonprofit audio media storytelling company, and our vision of public media goes beyond its initial broadcast inception. As you know, we're really in the market of making podcasts and really bringing stories that impact people and are the best that can be and really serve audiences where they are. We believe most in supporting creators, and that podcasting should remain an open and accessible ecosystem. And a part of our training program really exists under that ethos. And we like to train, we want to train, we're excited to train audio creators because we believe that through training and through education, through resource sharing, through peer-to-peer learning, can we continue to make podcasting an open ecosystem for all creators. So we distribute both broadcast and podcast shows. Many of you are maybe familiar with The Takeaway and Latino USA. And since the training team's inception a few years ago, we've run a variety of podcast accelerators, including Project Catapult, which I mentioned, for public radio stations, the Google Podcast Creator Program for independent audio creators around the world. And we also have worked with the Knight Foundation to offer podcasting and digital workshops for journalists across the US as well. And so that's who we are, PRX.
Thanks, Steph. I think we're going to go into show a little bit about what cohort 1 did. So if we can go, yeah, here's the next slide. So we did a showcase at the end of cohort 1, and this is a sizzle reel of all the work they did. So it's just a visual representation and kind of a pitch of the podcast that they were producing and did produce in cohort 1. The VO isn't quite laid down for this yet, so we aren't sharing this completely worldwide, but we did think that we would share it here just so you could get a sense of everything. In it, you'll see podcasts that are doing dual language podcasts, a podcast for children experiencing blindness, music podcasts, interview podcasts, and podcasts in collaboration with their community organizations. So yeah, if you want to just click play, then we'll kind of see a little bit of taste of what got produced. Welcome to the Ready to Learn Podcast Accelerator Showcase from PRX. We have 6 new children's podcasting teams from across the country. You will get to experience their vision for their newest podcast creation.
Ma'am, it is an honor to be here with you and Abby. My name is Kiwan Amy, and I am a blinded veteran.
Commander Kiwan is one of my heroes.
Catherine Allison is a Broadway actor who made her Broadway debut in 2015 in the hit musical Aladdin.
We're here in North Minneapolis. So what do the kids do here at Antioch?
So at Antioch, we do like an after-school program for the kids, and we teach them leadership qualities, we teach them how to be a part of the community.
I love seeing that video. Welcome to the Ready to Learn podcast. That I love seeing all the work that we did in the first cohort. It was a lot of fun. And so let's talk a little bit about what is a podcast accelerator and why we believe in the method of a podcast accelerator. So first, the podcast accelerator will not guarantee you like distribution or publication of your podcast. We're really coming alongside your team, your station, and making your podcast the best that it can be for an audience, and also allowing you to produce it and launch it. And the Podcast Accelerator's goal is that there are thousands, 10,000s of podcasts made every week, maybe even every day. And so it's not just that, can you make a podcast, but can you make a podcast that's going to serve a specific audience? It's going to be well-received, sustainable, and produce even better work for your collaborators and for your station. And so we believe in this project of truly being an accelerator for your ideas, any idea of any size, getting it to market and getting it to really be a fully realized idea. We have received feedback from a lot of our programs saying that this is professionally life-changing, that it gives them design tools that instantly become relevant and useful for all of their work. We do have a couple of teams that are actually partnering with large production organizations and will launch their podcasts in collaboration with them this year. And then the Podcast Accelerator provides visibility, it provides connections to your cohort, which would be everybody accepted into this accelerator program. And we have lots of connections to the key industry, the who's who of children's podcasters. Last time around, we had Wow in the World, we had Tinkercast, Brains On, PBS Kids, lots of different producers, marketers, and researchers all connecting throughout the accelerator program to provide the best coaching experience. And speaking of coaching, we do one-on-one mentorship and accountability throughout the entire program. We are really going to lock on to these podcasts to make sure that they are created for the best outcome. That being said, if you are selected for this program, there are a bunch of things that you receive. I just talked about the 16-week Podcast Accelerator, which is the training program, which is kind of the bread and butter of what we offer. We'll provide mentorship, ongoing mentorship and feedback. You'll be part of a community of peer-to-peer learning. And then some things that I hadn't discussed yet, you'll receive PRX distribution and ad tech. You'll get a $10,000 stipend, and we'll cover all the travel costs for a live event if we do it, which we are hopeful will happen this year, pandemic allowing for it.
All right. So what kind of podcasters are we? What kind of podcasts are we looking for? Specifically for this program, we are looking for new podcast ideas. So not shows that have already been in production for seasons, ideas that have not been produced or released into the world. And these are ideas that should aim to introduce children ages 2 to 8 and their families and their ready to learn communities, with an emphasis on representing various communities within your Ready to Learn community to the world of work and future careers. Basically, any kind of content that helps illustrate important social skills and dispositions like self-awareness, social awareness, goal setting, task persistence, flexible thinking, functional literacy, and an exposure to a variety of jobs and careers. We are happy with those pitches. We are also open to podcasts of all formats. We've worked with fiction, nonfiction, interview, loose conversation, storytelling, all that kind of stuff. But above all, submissions must strive to prioritize educational experiences and must be aligned with the overall mission of the Ready to Learn initiative. We also want to be sure that when you are submitting a podcast idea about age ranges, that while the age range is from 2 to 8, that you are actually being a little bit more specific within that age range of who that podcast is for. Because as many of you know, a child who's 2 and a child who's 8 are very different children, and one podcast to serve both of them would be very difficult. So the 2 to 8 is really a guideline, kind of the end of the spectrum. And when you pitch a show, make sure that you are very clear about who in that, what range within that age range you're really trying to target. But beyond the content itself, beyond the pitch itself, we really do believe at PRX that we are investing in teams, not necessarily ideas. And so we really want to work with passionate and creative production teams that have a demonstrated level of experience in children's programming or education, or educational media, experience in audio production, but most of all, have a passion to delight and teach children and connect with their communities and be open to co-creating, collaborating with their communities to make sure that you are producing content that is going to serve them in the end. And so anyone who is committed to those things, who have the ability and willingness to participate in a very rigorous program, as well as an openness to pivoting, to experimentation, to new ideas, those are broadly who we're looking for in this program. And we can definitely answer some more granular questions about this at the end of this session. An effective pitch. So many of you are probably very familiar with the process of pitching, but with podcasting, that can be a little bit different. And so I wanted to just go over what we like to look for in pitches or what we like to see in pitches. Next slide, please, Tony. So there really is no secret formula for the most compelling pitch, but as an organization that has run many cohorts and many accelerators, we know a good one when we see one, and we've noticed that a good pitch captures all of these things, that those pitches are very specific and meaningful. We love details and we like ideas that go past broad concepts. We want the pitches to have a clear idea of its intended audience. We know that we are reaching children from ages 2 to 8, but can you actually picture an ideal listener? What are their names? What do they like? What do they need? Can you create a compelling audience profile for this audience member? It offers broader context that puts the podcast into time and place and sets itself apart in the current landscape of existing children's content. You know, why this show now? Why is it culturally relevant? Why is it, why does it need to happen? Why does it need to get made? Again, speaking to details and specificity, we love to get a sense of how you imagine your episodes will look and sound like, how that will roll out, and what listeners can expect to hear and experience as a part of your show. Again, a lot of this is stuff that you don't know because they're all new ideas. So treat this as if, treat as an aspirational project. Think big. Pitch this show as if it already did exist. And most of all, we really want a pitch to demonstrate why you and your team have the skills, the vision, and the drive to make the show that you're pitching. Why you, why your community, make a case for why make a case for your contribution to this landscape, essentially.
So in the next section, we're going to talk a little bit about the 2-minute audio sample that we ask you to provide in the application. We get a lot of questions about this, so it's kind of important to hit. We do not want more than 2 minutes of the sample. So you can do less, but no need to submit a full episode here unless your episode happens to actually be 2 minutes. You can pick something that you have, you can prototype something. We really want the most compelling 2-minute audio sample that will give us a clear sense of what the show is about and what it sounds like. The clip could be a trailer, it could be a teaser, it could even just be a sound mood/vision board. And if you're piloting a new idea and haven't begun production, you can get creative. You can put together something rough and aspirational. While we will be paying attention to technical skill and execution, what we're really listening for is the vision and creativity, and really the potential of what the podcast has to be. As far as audio experience goes, do you need to have audio experience? Yes, the training will focus more on idea development, audience and community engagement, and really just developing of a children's program. So you do need to have some audio experience within the team because we're not going to cover basic audio production skills, but that doesn't mean that you need to have a seasoned sound engineer. We just need somebody that can actually be part of the audio creation process on your team. And to be clear, I didn't mention this, but even if your audio person does just have video experience, but has done audio and can make the translation over to a single audio editing software, I think that would actually work fine. So what kind of team, now that we're on that subject, what kind of team should be participating in this training? So first, we want to be upfront that we are only accepting applications from public media stations that are currently funded by CPB as ready-to-learn learning neighborhoods. We will not be accepting submissions from any independent producers in this cohort. However, you can hire contractors and freelancers and have them be part of your team submission. They still need to be representative of the learning neighborhood stations. We recommend a team of up to 3 and at least 1 member of all teams having some background in audio production, as I already mentioned. And then the other team members could cover the areas of marketing and education or promotion, all joining the whole production journey though. Training attendees must be at least 18 years old to participate. Currently, we're not able to process contract work between PRX and minors for our podcast accelerator program. Additionally, our training program involves a significant time commitment, which is likely to be in conflict with traditional K-12 school hours. However, we do encourage adult participants to share their training with and involve all team members in the work outside of the virtual training sessions. And finally, all participants must be able to speak and understand English fluently. Currently, PRX is not able to offer this training totally in a language other than English. Podcast ideas, however, do not have to be in English to be eligible. So do you have to have experience or expertise in children's content? We would prefer that the production teams have some experience in this field, but we don't want to cut off great ideas. If you don't have a history in children's content making, then make a compelling case for why your application and the training could support the idea and what you'll bring to the program and to the children's podcasting landscape. We're really just looking for fresh ideas, new talent, and new voices are certainly welcome. So can you apply with a non-English language or bilingual or multilingual podcast? Yes, absolutely. We believe you should make the content that will best serve your ready to learn community. So we encourage you to produce whatever that may be to you. And if that is a non-English podcast, then that's great.
All right, so we've mentioned the 16-week training. So I'll break it down a little bit for you some more so you have a clear understanding of what we mean by that. So the training, the dates are set. It will run from June 13th to September 30th with a final showcase sometime in the fall. The first 12 weeks of this is really dedicated to hands-on training and mentorship with PRX staff. We will kick things off with a 1-week design intensive in June, so that first week, June 13th, where we'll cover fundamental skills, tools, and mindsets that will set up your teams for success and for the remainder of the program. Then after that, there will be weekly synchronous group sessions where we will integrate lecture, design and development activities, peer-to-peer learning. There will also be webinars every week as well with experts in the field and influencers in the field, just basically those who are doing really good stuff in the space right now. There will be some off weeks built into this so that there are times for the teams to actually get work done. You will be expected to work on your podcast in this time, but you will not be expected to attend a synchronous group session or a webinar of any kind. In this as well will be mentorship appointments and check-ins to supplement learning. We really actually think that the instruction happens and you learn a lot in those, but the real inspiration, the sparks of innovation happen when you're speaking one-on-one with your mentor, and that mentor will be Mike. And Mike has done a lot of great work counseling and helping people through creative hurdles. And it's those one-on-one mentorship opportunities that make a huge difference. I would say that you can expect approximately 10 hours of work any given week, and that's including the synchronous sessions, webinars, mentorship check-ins, as well as any outside work. Granted, that time varies depending on your capacity, the speed at which you work, all that kind of stuff. Finally, the final 4 weeks will be just open time, will be reserved for teams to finish their deliverables for the program. So there'll be 12 weeks of hands-on, we're together in this, we're seeing each other every week, and then 4 weeks off where you're spent, what should be spent putting together the work that we've been working on. There will be a final showcase sometime amidst all of this, which will involve some preparation and some rehearsals, and the schedule for that is still to be determined. We will do our best to set a program cadence that accommodates everybody's schedules. So we're very flexible. We send out an accessibility survey for everybody prior to training to get a sense of what potential schedule conflicts there may be, what other conflicts there may be. And it is our goal to be as flexible as possible, but please also know that this program is quite rigorous and it's intentionally so. So offering your greatest flexibility will maximize the chance that we can include you and maximize your learning opportunities, essentially.
So your, Tony, I think, can we go back up a slide? There we go. Perfect. What you submit originally in your application will not likely be the outcome of the final deliverables, because we're going to take it through a whole journey through the 16 weeks in the podcast accelerator. But once you reach the end of the podcast accelerator, the final deliverables that we will have are 1 pilot episode, a production and editorial calendar for the upcoming season, a prelim promotion and community engagement strategy, a curriculum overview outlining educational goals and of the podcast and how the goals align with the broader Ready to Learn project, And then finally, a 10-minute final showcase presentation, which can be used and should be used as a pitch for both external and internal stakeholders of your podcast. So we really situate your podcast to have a clear foundation for the remaining trajectory of your work. And we'll do a lot of work for alignment, launch, monetization, marketing. All of those things will be tools that are in the ready for this podcast to go.
Another big question we have is who owns the intellectual property of this podcast? Simply put, you do. PRX takes no intellectual property in this process, not even from the application on. You will be asked to sign an agreement that covers crediting and branding, but for the purposes of this training, PRX nor CPB, neither of us owns any of your work, and you are free to do with it what you want to. And finally, our last question that we have pre-planned before we go into an open Q&A. Can I apply, or can your station apply to Ready to Learn if you've already participated in another PRX accelerator? Yes, you can. However, you must apply with a new idea for a children's podcast. So we also recommend sending different team members. If you have participated in a previous accelerator with a kids podcast, specifically, you cannot apply for this with that same show.
All right. That brings us to a close of our FAQ today. This is the link, looks like this on the website that we provided above to be able to submit. And we will notify you after you apply to March 25th by May 3rd of the selection. So that's the timeline. Apply March 25th, find out by May 3rd. And so now we are reaching that time where we have questions. And so we can answer any questions, any clarifications, anything you might have about the application process. We are also available to be emailed at any time at trainingteam@prx.org. So please email as much as you want.
All right, Mike, it looks like we have a couple questions in the Q&A. How many grants will be awarded? We currently have 5 teams or 5 grants to be awarded, but we have definitely made room for 6 in the past. But currently that's 5 awards. And then the second question is how many members should form a team? Up to 3. So no more than 3. We certainly don't recommend sending a team of 1 because the work is so collaborative. And a single person will find themselves to be very lonely during the virtual session. So more than 1, no more than 3.
And just to clarify on that, Stephanie, we will work with teams of 3, but the teams could be larger internally if you want to share back and work with them. It's just as far as the accelerator goes, it's 3. Is that correct?
Yes. So obviously, if you have a podcasting unit at your organization, that's 10 people or 5 people. Not all 10 of them can come, but the 3 that you designate as representatives of that team can come to the virtual sessions and will be expected to speak to everybody else. Though if your team is also larger, they're welcome to come to webinars. They're welcome to meet Mike during one-on-one mentorship, but for the purposes of the learning environment that we're trying to create virtually, only 3 people, but your team could obviously be much bigger.
Stephanie, it looks like we have a question in chat about where do we go to find out about existing podcasts so that we can be certain ours is a new idea. If this is in reference to what we said in the FAQ, we actually, we're talking about the application process. We want you to situate yours in all of children's media in the application process. Why is yours new there? And that could be larger than podcasts, and other applications have referenced other media. But as far as learning about new children's podcasts, it's a simple Google search of like top 100 or top 10 children's podcasters. We have kind of been in reference with most of them. That'll get you going pretty quickly. Stephanie, I don't know if you have a better resource than that.
Yeah, I think we did have, we are in the process of creating a new website where we will have the shows that we helped produce in the last round. They'll be there, but they're not currently available. But if, I'm wondering if I'm reading this question as if like, how do we know our idea is new in the landscape of podcasting? That's great if it is. What we really do mean by new is that it is just not something you're already producing at the station. That's what we mean by new, if I was reading that question correctly. Let's see. Tasha Weinstein asked, is it okay to work with other radio stations that are not our station's public radio station? They have to be nonprofits. I might need clarity on that. Essentially, the station that's going to be represented in the program, the one that's going to be receiving the stipend, has to be a PBS station that's currently receiving CPB funding as a learning neighborhood station. If you want to partner with another station or another group in your organization or in your community, that's fine. But ultimately, the signee, the signatory, or the representative entity in the contract has to be that learning neighborhood station. And Devin, feel free to clarify.
Yeah, I would say that partnership is great, especially because you're going to want to think things about like promotion and distribution and even just content creation. But just to make sure that in your application, you would explain how public media would be seen as like a lead distributor of the podcast that you're proposing, if it were to come out, or what public media's role would be in that.
Okay, there's another question in the Q&A that kind of speaks similar to that. Can members of the team come from our RTL partner organizations, or do they have to be from the station? I would say, yeah, sure. I think the thing that you're going to have to navigate on your end, though, is how you will compensate them for that time, or how you're going to work through the schedules. Essentially, like, would this be like, if they're working other jobs at the moment, like, you'd have to negotiate how the timing would, like, how to schedule, what the time commitment will be, what capacity will be. But no, we did work with organizations in other programs where they brought in people from their partners, and that's totally fine.
Neil asks if we could give an example of a podcast that we worked with that was successful. I don't know if this is in reference to other accelerator programs with PRX or Ready to Learn, but as far as Ready to Learn goes, we would consider all of the podcasts that we worked with successful. And the key to them being successful was them understanding their audience and really delivering it to them. So with Page Flippers from New York, they partnered with the Brooklyn Public Library and worked to create a podcast that was exploratory for the reading experience with their kids. And that podcast is going to be really successful. A lot of these podcasts are still in the process of actually launching them, so you can't see them in the wild, but all of them have some form of launch that's going to happen. Yeah.
Do you want, I can give examples of actual shows that aren't in Ready to Learn, because this is only a 2-year-old program, but
yeah.
To keep it in the realm of public media, we had 3 years of Project Catapult under CPB as well. And Project Catapult was a podcast accelerator for public media stations generally. And some successful shows that we helped produce was On Something from Colorado Public Radio. It was a show that just went into hiatus. They're on arrest right now, but it was a great show about the realities of marijuana legalization. It came out of Colorado Public Radio. Loved that show. Sick from WFYI in Indiana was also a really great show. It was its first season was an investigative true crime story about malpractice in the fertility industry, and that went on to be one of our most successful shows ever at PRX. We also helped produce Through the Cracks from WAMU, which also is one of our most successful shows. So we do have quite a history of working with public media stations and really helping them conceive of ideas that are a bit unexpected for their station, may not have been their first instinct, and really help them create something that was innovative and new and really galvanize their stations in the process.
Great. We had a question of, is the objective to make content for children aged 2 to 8 or their parents, and all of that that whole like spectrum of what it could be for? And this is a great question. I'm glad that we're revisiting this. So yes, it could be for, we've kind of phrased it as the learning communities around these the 2 to 8 audience. So that could be caretakers, that could be educators, it could be directly the children themselves. So it kind of, based on your pitch, tying it to the kids at the heart of it, but could be their surrounding community. All right, looks like we also have, if selected, what are some of the things a station needs to provide mentally, support-wise, station-wide to the team to help guarantee success of the accelerator? This is a really great question. So I think that in one of the questions in the application, we'll kind of talk about, like, you can outline what is the alignment with the station. So we think that a successful podcast for this program would have at least buy-in from the station, excitement about this future podcast that's going to be happening, and thought processes around what a launch maybe could be. We will also do some of that station integration work to work with them on a proper launch as well. And Stephanie, I don't know if you want to say more about that.
I have a massive, I can talk about all the ways that you could support all the ways that you can support your team. But I will say that generally we also, when we're working with organizations, we work directly with producers, right? We're not necessarily interacting with senior level leadership or program directors. We're really working with the people making the product. And so a lot of what we do is help them and coach them through how to navigate an institution when you are essentially kind of a startup within an organization. We've actually called podcasts and public radio stations little startups. And so a lot of our training also is about coaching them through managing up across, how to advocate for themselves, how to tell their stories across an organization, how to manage expectations. And so if you are a member of senior leadership, or you are a director or an editor or anybody who's going to be supervising this team, really open yourselves up to how non-hierarchical this process will feel, and be open to listen to really getting insights and creativity from the people on the ground making it. So we really structured this to be a bottom-up program.
And along those lines, we provide, I'm still in one-on-one sessions with some of the teams from RTL, the first cohort. So we really have a vested interest until launch of keeping in contact and helping and supporting those initiatives. So there's a question a little bit about that. Was can a station apply RTL Learning Neighborhood funds to the systematic rollout of a podcast like this after its completion? And so, Devin, I'll have to ask your help there.
I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say potentially, only because as part of this accelerator, your ideas, we hope that you'll think about your actual learning neighborhood, like the actual communities that you're doing your learning neighborhood work in. But we also understand that, like, the scope of a podcast should probably be larger than just that one community. It should also reach other communities like it within your service areas. So this project, this particular piece of Ready to Learn, can be bigger than just your learning neighborhood. Your learning neighborhood budget, your grant from CPB directly, has to focus on that one learning neighborhood. So there may be ways where this could align and you could support in later years of the project with your budget, as long as you're meeting also the other requirements of the Ready to Learn CPB grant. So I would say potentially, but it would really be a case-by-case basis.
And Devin, this might be a good place to clarify that the $10,000 stipend for getting part of this cohort will come from PRX and would be on top of the funding that they're already receiving as an RTL.
Yeah, so a whole separate agreement. This wouldn't be an agreement, an addition to an agreement or a new agreement between the station and CPB. It would be between PRX and the stations.
Great.
Those are all the questions that we have in the Q&A and in the chat, but we are 17 minutes from the end of this webinar. So we are happy to stay on and continue to answer any more questions. Feel free to actually raise your hand and we can unmute you so we can talk to faces, or actually, no, we can't see you, but we can talk to actual voices. We're here to do that. Otherwise, if you have no other questions, you are free to claim back those 17 minutes of your day of recording. A subtitle or closed captioned video plus a transcript of this webinar will be posted to the FAQ page on that website that Mike shared earlier today. Tasha, can you remind us of the dates the 16 weeks begins? Yeah, so June 13th will be day one, and the final day, the day that all deliverables will be submitted, September 30th.
Marion had great question about what is the role of video in this project, because we saw some really great animations in the showcase. So we were able to provide the funds that weren't allotted for travel to the teams because we had a digital showcase, and a lot of them chose to either pay an animator or pay a video editor or producer for that piece of that showcase. Video is really here served as a marketing and pitch aspect, or basically allowing to tell the story of your podcast, whether it's in the production phase, or sorry, the marketing phase, or just in the actual showcase or the pitch phase, is really kind of the outcome of where we think video could be best served here. That's not to say that these podcasts don't eventually become video at some point in their life, but we're not looking for a dual video podcast submission at this point.
Yeah, there is no expectation to create video for this.
That's a better answer.
You're not required to make videos, but certainly a lot of the shows we work with, the moment we read the pitch, we see the video potential, the cross-platform potential in all these shows. But this program is really, really the most concerned about making sure that the idea that you apply with is strong, it serves real audience needs, and that from there, if the foundation is really tight and really creative, then other products will come. But try not to go too big before you've really conquered the initial phases, essentially. All right. Well, Tony, maybe we just turn up some tunes and see if anyone has any remaining questions, any lingering questions, but we will be here until the end of the hour. And thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate your time, and we really hope to see every one of you submit a pitch.
Yeah, thanks for such good questions and for coming to this. It's been great.
Yes. And we really are the people you'll be working with. We're not just talking heads.
Yeah, we're not robots.